Stocks gained some traction on Wall Street this morning after a slightly better than expected weekly unemployment report. The Dow jumped 500 points. The S&P and Nasdaq both climbed around 2% after weekly jobless claims fell to 233,000, 17,000 less than the previous week. This gave investors a bit of a confidence after the turbulence earlier this week. Stocks plunged Monday morning amid a global sell-off and recession fears that were renewed by a worse than expected July jobs report. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 1,100 points after opening bell, and the Nasdaq fell nearly 5%. Wall Street fear the volatility index surged to its highest point since the pandemic in 2020, adding to investors' panic. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway sold half of its stake in Apple over the weekend, causing its shares to drop more than 7%. Some investors have hoped the Fed would step in with an emergency rate cut, which hasn't done since the pandemic. The Fed has kept rates at 5.25% and 5.5% as Biden inflation has crippled Americans for the past 3 years. Now, those numbers are more than double the Fed's 2% target rate. And joining me now is Bob Rubin of Rubin Wealth Advisors, one of the country's leading conservative financial advisors, to give us his reaction to the market, the volatility, some predictions about what Trump or Harris presidency might bring us. So, Bob, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here. Earlier this week, Americans woke up to the news that the U.S. stock market and indices were in a major sell-off. Many saw their 401ks decline significantly. I didn't even want to look. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm like, I'm not looking. We've seen a little rebound since, but, waking up to seeing the entire stock market in the red was really, really scary. What happened earlier this week? And do you think it's going to happen again? And if so, how can Americans prepare? We were supposed to have you on in the 2 o'clock hour, but President Trump was speaking from Mar-a-Lago, and President Trump did address this exact thing, saying the stock market plunging is just a sign of what's to come.
He's right. I mean, Stella, thank you for having me. It's good to see you again. Mm-hmm. And if you have a 401k, you should probably not look. It can be kind of scary. And obviously, a 401k is a long-term investment, right, which is good. So, you could actually look at it with a 401k that if the market goes down, as long as you're continuing to add money to your 401k, that's actually a good thing. But really, the market sell-off over the last week or so is really a direct result of, I guess, the instability and economic policies of this Biden administration. They have weak economic data. They have persistent inflation. They have too many regulations, and there's just a lack of confidence in their leadership. And as long as this administration continues its current path, more downturns are likely.
Let me ask you this, because I don't like to live in an echo chamber, and these are some of the things that I'm seeing online. If we're going to blame the Biden administration for the stock market plunging, and then let's say things go great, do they get credit for that as well? Like, what's your take on the that outlook?
No, that's a really good question, because administrations obviously try to take credit for something that's going good in the economy, and they don't want to take the blame when something's going bad. But the reality is, from a long-term basis, is they're just not doing good things by the economy. They really haven't handled, as far as the interest rates you had mentioned about the interest rates not being brought down, and they've just added way too many regulations. They're really hurting us with the energy, the fact that they're not drilling. There's just so many different things they're doing that, from a short-term basis, it's hard to blame or give credit to an administration. But on a long-term basis, they're not doing the right thing by capitalism, and that's going to overall hurt the economy and hurt the markets.
I mean, we're seeing President Trump, when he spoke today, he's talking about, listen, just common sense, like young adults just want to live the American dream, can't even afford a home these days. Do you believe, does the Fed need to step in at this point, and how would rate cuts affect this situation, and how many rate cuts could they really have and make?
Well, the market at different times prices in different kind of rate cuts, whether it's 0.25% or 25 basis points or 0.75 or 0.75%. Obviously, if they go ahead and they lower the interest rate, that's going to help mortgage rates. It's going to help all sorts of different things, which if it helps lower mortgage rates, which they have come down a little bit in preparation or in anticipation of the Fed's cutting rates, that obviously makes housing more affordable for a young person. But rates have been kind of at this 5%, 4.5%, 5% for a few years now, and that's almost normalized it a little bit. But it's not just the rates, it's also inflation. We've had persistent Biden inflation. And the American dollar has lost, was it almost over 16% of its purchasing power in the last 4 years. And that erosion of value of the actual dollar, which is driven by these bad policies and excessive spending and all that, is painful for the average American. A young person trying to buy groceries, or any of us buying groceries, gas, or housing, costs significantly more. I mean, we need President Trump. We need change in the White House.
Yeah, I went shopping the other day and my husband was like, we need toilet paper and we need paper towels. And I went in, to a store and I looked at a big paper towels like this. That used to be like, $12 or something like that, $12, $13, $25, almost $30, some of them. I was like shocked because usually my husband is the one who gets it. And he's like, honey, you cannot get out of the store under $100 no matter what. It's just so expensive. So what does a Harris presidency versus a Trump presidency mean for Americans economically?
It's probably going to not be good. It's going to be ugly. I mean, she doesn't first know anything about business, and she's going to want more regulations in healthcare, energy, technology, finance, which is just going to lead to higher compliance costs. It's going to stifle innovation. She says she supports fracking, for example. Well, last week she didn't, but she says she does now. And, she supports a balanced energy policy, but she's still aligned with these progressive, anti-capitalistic, environmental crazies who just want to ruin this country. As contrasted to President Trump, he wants deregulation. He wants energy independence policies, which favors economic growth, innovation, and job creation. Here at Rubin Wealth, we believe in those policies that promote economic freedom and prosperity. Again, that's why we support change in the White House. Having a Harris Walz president administration would not be good for this economy.
But people will say, they'll just have the right people around them. But those right people are the same ones that think like them. Am I right?
Well, you can see what's happened in the last 4 years. Look at the kind of people that are around Biden and Harris. These people are not friends of capitalism. They at the end of the day want to change in the actual kind of system that we have. They want to go to a more socialistic or communistic kind of system, and they don't believe that capitalism is good for this country. They don't believe capitalism is good for anybody. But we all know that capitalism is good. It creates jobs. It stops poverty. Mm-hmm. It's just overall a good thing. But they, for whatever the reason, this is what they want. So the kind of people that you're going to see around it'll be even crazier in a Harris Walz administration. It's hard to say that, by the way, Harris Walz administration. Yeah. as compared to a Biden administration. I mean, those people are kind of crazy. The people around Kamala will be even more nuts.
But they're more progressive. So here's a simple question before we wrap up. Are you and your clients better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Absolutely not. And it's really because of this persistent inflation, like what you mentioned about what your husband saw in the supermarket. Yeah. We all see that in the supermarket.
Yep.
I mean, my wife and I, we see it in the supermarket. You go to a Costco, for example, and a package of steaks used to be $25. They're $100 now. How are we better off?
No, let me tell you, I have a 7-year-old and she was in summer camp and she said, Mommy, I want some money. I gave her a $20 bill. She came back and she had like no money. I said, what did you buy? She said, I bought a pretzel and I bought this. And I said, okay, it can't be that bad. The pretzel was $10. And
Come on.
But these are the kinds of prices. And I'm like, oh, how massive was this pretzel? I mean, it really just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, wow, $20 nowadays can't get you a lot.
No, it doesn't. And, I don't know how a person that makes, like an average amount of money and they don't have, say, an increase in their pay, how are they paying for things? How are they buying gas or medicine or food or if rent? I just heard a story where rent went from $3,500 for 2-bedroom to $4,500. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
Right, like, you're paying more. You're paying more. Your salary isn't growing, and so you have to be in the red.
Well, you have to move, and this is happening across the country, and it's all because of inflation. Inflation is very corrosive. So this is one important point. When the Biden administration comes out and says, "Oh, it's only gone up by 3.5%," yeah, but it's been compounded on the previous years. So that's why I gave the statistic of 16.5% loss in the last 4 years. The value of dollar is actually down 16%, but if you go back 10 or 15 years, you're down almost 50%. That's why this is all happening. It's all about the inflation and the fact that we're not getting the economic growth that we really need and want.
Yeah. Bob Rubin of Rubin Wealth Advisors. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Stella.
Yeah,
Take care.
sorry about what happened in the previous hour. I know Trump went long, but I really wanted to have this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella.
Thanks.
Take care.
You too.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live.